Sutton United Talk Time on podcast. It's the Sutton Podcast.
And Golly, and Reigns, and a goal! And they have done it! Oh, and driven in! And number 11, Matthew Hanlon, followed that in.
Wilson will strike it! And it's gone all the way through! Oh, there you go! Not the cleanest of contacts, but Louis John scores for a third game running.
And there it is! Sutton United at the GM Vauxhall Conference have put out First Division Coventry City, winners of the FA Cup themselves less than 2 years ago.
But the whistle goes now. Delight for Sutton United. Sutton United in the National League are through to the last 16 of the FA Cup. No longer English football's perennial non-league club. A 123-year crescendo reaches a new peak for Sutton United, who are promoted to the Football League for the first time.
Hello and welcome to the Sutton United Talk Time on podcast. You can't even say it. Is the midweek treat. Joining me today is Kenneth, all the way from Texas. Hello, Kenneth. How are you?
I'm just fine. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you very much. Just wanted to make sure everyone had a very Merry Christmas and it made however you celebrated, you were happy doing so, or other people were happy at least, even if you weren't. But how was your Christmas, Kenneth?
You know, it was just fine. My family and I, we went to New York City. And New York City is just about as different as you can get from where I reside on a day-to-day basis. I enjoy it thoroughly. It was very cold. But the kids loved it. Got to do the ice skating in Central Park and the various other New York City Christmas things in addition to freezing. So not bad at all.
Excellent. So you spent the actual Christmas day in New York as well?
Yeah, we were there until last night. We
Beautiful.
left last week and we did Christmas Day up there. And we live, where I live, I'm not going to pretend to be able to convert it to Celsius, but it's about 75 degrees Fahrenheit here most Christmases.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife is from the north and wants a cold Christmas. So
Oh.
the last couple of Christmases we've traveled so that she could experience something more like her childhood. I am just fine with a
With the warm.
75-degree Christmas. I grew up on the Gulf Coast of Texas. It doesn't get cold. Maybe 3 nights a year it gets cold, and I am perfectly okay with it.
Well, we have the lovely thoughts and traditions and hopes of a white Christmas, and it never is. It's a rainy Christmas mostly here, or certainly in London. It's usually a rainy Christmas. We get snow every now and then, but we can't cope with even half an inch of snow, let alone what's been going on in New York. So
Yes, it's a whole different world.
yeah, absolutely. But obviously, you're from Texas. You grew up in Texas, and you've decided to become shareholder supporter of Sutton United. So, how, where, why?
That's a very, very good question. And I'll tell you that I probably did not see a professional soccer game on TV until. Honestly, it probably wasn't a professional game. It was probably an international game. It was probably the 1994 World Cup the first time. I was 12 years old.
Yeah.
That's probably the first time I saw what we'll call, professional level soccer. Of course, we have youth soccer here. I promise you it in no way resembles what youth soccer in any part of Europe looks like. It's getting better. It's much better now.
Yeah.
But in 1990 in Rockport, Texas, it was not much to speak of. And honestly, I gave up soccer as soon as I found basketball because I realized I could use my hands, and that was just. And really, as a adolescent and young adult, I was a big time basketball guy, and I still am. I'm still a big basketball fan. When I was in high school, so this is the long, boring version of since we don't have a game to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ramble on here, but. At my high school, when I was a senior, there was a Bulgarian exchange student, and he had a local club. He was a fan of in Bulgaria, Borgus, and then he was an Arsenal fan. honestly, it's the first time I really had anyone sit down and try to explain to me how professional, club soccer in Europe works, and I still didn't get it. Quite honestly, I did not understand it. I was vaguely aware of, if it was a big name soccer player, I was vaguely aware of them. When I was in high school, I took a trip to Paris with my school, like a spring break, stay in bad hotels and eat salmon pate kind of trip. And came across the PSG store on the Champs-Elysees. And so I kind of became a default PSG fan at that point. But when I say that, I couldn't even tell you. I think Pochettino played for them then. I know that now. I didn't know that then.
Yep.
I couldn't have told you anybody who played in the team. That's not true. They had JJ Okocha played on their team, and I remembered him from the World Cup. So that, I knew one guy. And so that kind of was my intro, and he, got me involved in it. And then when I went to college, I found Football Manager. And that is where I developed probably more of my knowledge. But even then, I played that same version of Football Manager for like 6 years. Like, it was the same old players, and I didn't, I was hardly keeping up with it. And then it really picked up when they started playing. I mean, I'm talking like 5 years ago, they started playing Premier League games on Saturday mornings.
Mm-hmm.
And I would get up and watch them. And that's kind of where I got hooked. And the fact that American players are starting to become more prevalent in European leagues is a huge part of it. Because I will say, I was talking with one of the other shareholders who lives in the United States a couple of months ago, and they have childhood clubs. I don't have a childhood club. MLS barely existed. I still don't really enjoy watching it. I don't have like a local childhood club. So my childhood club is the men's national team.
Yeah.
Like I have fond memories of games I saw and players and the guys who, the legends who performed for the team when they were, nobodies. And I remember that all pretty well and really looked forward to it. And pre-COVID, I'd probably taken a men's national team game 2 or 3 times a year if they were convenient to me geographically. So that's my background. So it's more, and it still is. That's still probably my primary interest is the men's national team as we go through our permutations of missing the World Cup and hopefully on our way to some modest glory here in the near future. But I would say Pulisic signing with Chelsea probably supercharged my interest in English football in particular.
Mm-hmm.
But even when I got involved, the story of how I got involved in Sutton in particular is that I worked with a brokerage. There's a company in New York City that does this. And if you tell them you're interested, on our side, teams go to them and say, we're interested in finding, shareholders, investors, whatever. And for years, all I would get was like Serie C bankrupt clubs in Italy. And I just had no interest in that for a number of reasons. And when the Sutton opportunity came along, it was perfect. It was exactly what I wanted, a fiscally responsible club, but that had some growth mindedness, was trying to improve their situation in the world. And it just worked out perfectly. And really the better part of it is that when I spent time, I've actually never been to a Sutton match because of COVID. And I've never met any of the other shareholders or board members in person, but we spent hours on Zoom calls getting to know each other. And they had a lot more questions for me than I did for them. They were very curious as to why a lawyer in South Texas was interested, and fair questions, but I'm a sports nut. That's what I do. College sports here is a huge thing. And that's really for years has been my thing, but a lot of it's changing now, and I'm not sure what the awareness of that would be in the UK. But they've changed a lot of rules on transferring from one school to another, and it's kind of made it an open season, which is good for the players. But as a fan, it's hard for me. Watching a kid go and play as a freshman and grow every year to a senior year and see what he could accomplish provided a lot of the value to me in it, and you just don't really get that anymore. The really good players jump to the NBA immediately, immediately, and then if they don't play first year, they just transfer to a new school. So every year it's like a whole new roster, very hard to keep track of, et cetera, et cetera. I won't be the cranky old guy complaining about it, but
new rules.
Yeah, just new rules, changes in the kind of the foundation of it. And I've simultaneously found Sutton in particular, but English soccer in general to be kind of the opposite. The traditions have held, and basically the way that fans responded to the whole Super League thing is exactly how I would have felt about it if someone had asked me about all the changes in college sports. And so I like that there is tradition, history. I'm such a dilettante when it comes to all this stuff. I mean, I am coming from a place of true ignorance and doing my best to catch up quickly. But it's a whole new world, and I really enjoy it. It's like finding a new thing at my age is rare, and it's been wonderful, and kind of built my knowledge base on, and I'm going to keep calling it soccer just because I get confused when I start.
Yeah,
I know that's a thing, but I'm going to keep calling it soccer.
You saw my Twitch every time.
Yes, exactly. Everyone does. That's why I usually give the disclaimer in advance. I'm going to call it soccer. But it's been wonderful. It's just been a great experience, and even from across the Atlantic Ocean, you can feel the community and the camaraderie. And I have other shareholders and board members that I text and call on a regular basis. I interact with fans and a little bit on Twitter. Mm-hmm. And I see the just the positive support, and also the down to earth support, which I love. I love that it's a place where everybody can appreciate the beautiful absurdity of how this has turned out, and thinks of it in a as a great opportunity. I love it. It's wonderful.
Yeah, the awesome bewilderment of this isn't happening. What? Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I'm super proud of. You don't always think of it, but the core group of people I've had on. I was talking to someone the other day and said I do need to get some new voices on. I need to get new people on because the newest supporter I've had on so far was 20 years. He's the new boy. So it's, oh my goodness. And then you've got people like, obviously you spoke to super technological Roofs, who has been at the club for years. Dave has been at the club for years. AB has been supporting for years and years. So there's something about the club that kind of just takes in, nurtures and holds everyone. It's a strange little club. It's extremely strange colours. We all know this. But I don't know if anyone ever told you. I'm sure they did. But one of the reasons the colours were chosen is because it was the cheapest ones available at the time. And
I believe it.
Yeah, 1898. It was still a cheap club, but value for money, not cheap.
Exactly, value. It's all about value.
But the thing, years and years ago, we had quite a good team with some really good young players in, and it felt there was a chance to push on, but the board kind of had to make the decision at the time. We can't do it. We can't break the budget to keep these particularly good players, and we ended up having to let them go. It was a bit kind of it's so annoying, and we're such small-minded. But then you're seeing what happens to other clubs who go for it. Like Kingstonian is my favourite example. They just absolutely went for it, and they now don't have anything to look forward to. I mean, they've got a team. Don't get me wrong, but they're in the wilderness. Whereas Sutton, you kind of knew that at the time I didn't know where they'd be in 20 years. I kind of figured they'd be at the same level, but we'd be watching football. But absolutely, they've just taken this footing and went, you know what, we're going to just slowly build, but we're not going to break the bank to do it.
And that's so rare. I mean, that's where I would say that when I got up, and I do want to throw another disclaimer in there, is that I have absolutely no decision-making authority at the club, and no one discusses anything with me. So I have zero inside information or strategy to offer here. But I do think from when I was just a third party looking at the club and seeing if it's something I'd be interested in, the fiscal responsibility was a huge component. And I do think that the nature of how the club is managed and how it was built has really created an opportunity to have the foundation, the tradition, and the stability. And then also there is now opportunity for finding a way to keep the players you want and to improve your standing while still being relatively fiscally responsible. I think that's I think everybody from the like compliance side of moving up to the football league, it's been a eye-awakening experience. But I mean, they got it done. The board and the volunteers who took on all those jobs. My understanding is there was like 60 different tasks that had to happen, and they all got assigned to someone, and they all got the things taken care of, mostly without any compensation. This is people who just want the club to be successful, and you don't have that in American sports. There is no equivalent. There is no college sports being the closest example.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have that at a professional level, and it's allowed us to focus on the on-the-field product, keeping a manager who clearly has the score figured out with this squad. And it's been a wonderful thing to be part of, and to see considered and deliberate decision-making continue, I think is a wonderful thing. And having the old guard and then some new blood is wonderful. It's a great combination of how to improve the club continually going forward. I mean, who knows what's going to happen this season, but I don't think anybody saw this coming. And it's been pretty unbelievable. And I've seen some of the advanced metrics on, some of our games seem ugly, and sometimes they seem like we're hanging on by a thread. But if you look at a lot of the advanced metrics, they're very predictive of success. And with whatever Matt is doing is it's bearing out in both the results, and I think when you look deeper than how you feel about the game as it happened, if you look deeper than that, like our quality shots are and converted goals and actual goals versus expected goals, we're very positive in all of those metrics. And I think that's you get you see the results on the field, or you see the results on the table. Maybe you don't see it straight away on the field, but you see it on the table for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's quite a few things discussed at the Meet the Manager evening, and one of which was obviously he's a young manager doing well. And first thing people saying that, are you staying? Are you staying? He kind of was basically saying, I've essentially got a blank canvas here. We're building this as a football league club, and I get to kind of put my input as to what I want. One of the things that completely threw me was when he said that he's got targets of players in mind for the next 2-3 years, a replacement for almost every player in the squad. He's got a target to go for. And I'm sitting there going, this is Sutton United that we're talking. This is the back of a cigarette packet kind of.
Yeah.
That's doing a disservice, but it's never really thought about, wow, where are we going to be in 5 years time, 10 years time. We always wanted to be as Bruce said, the best non-league club we could be, and that's gone. So we've done that. So it's where can we go? Some of the stuff he was talking about, and there was a guy, and I've forgotten his name, and I do apologize if he listens. He's basically taken my dream job from 20 years ago. It didn't exist, where doing all the things you're talking about, all the stats. He's got various data on different players, and literally it will be, this is the type of player we're looking for and who fulfills all this criteria. And I'm crying because I'm like, this would, I was useless at any sports, and this would have been my dream leaving school to do this. Spreadsheets for football, love it.
That's I think that's a huge thing, and the ability to have data to go on allows somebody like Matt to make smart choices. And there's a whole movement in American baseball called Moneyball. Okay, so you're familiar with that. I mean, it's old now. Everybody's there. And in some sports, in basketball, for example, and analytics, I think, has kind of ruined professional basketball. They're too good and they're too smart. And that takes away from some of the beauty of the experience. I have not found that to be the case when watching soccer. So it doesn't seem to have translated as poorly to the soccer pitch, but it does. I mean, like you said, 20 years ago, you didn't have any of these force multipliers that you have now. And I don't think it's a surprise that finding a manager with this kind of like professionalism and this kind of insight, who has good support around him, it's not a surprise that this is when the club is is improving. I also don't think it's a surprise that you're seeing smaller clubs, and I use smaller in a more I know in English football, small and big is like a whole different thing. I'm just referring to it in, if you consider fan base and balance sheet, it's not a surprise that some of the smaller clubs are rising and staying while bigger clubs are not, because the smaller clubs don't have the baggage. They don't have the expectation, and so they can be a blank slate, and they can look at how they're doing things and be objective and efficient instead of just trying to throw money at a problem. Because I think that you can see at all levels of professional sports that rarely, with the exception of the New York Yankees, it rarely seems to work. And often you're paying for a good that has already passed its value
peak,
date. You're paying for what the value was last year instead of what the value is this year. And I think that that approach you just mentioned about what game are we playing, how are we going to play it, and who slots into that game the best is 20 years ago you couldn't have done it. It's all guesswork. It's all scouring soccer fields all over England trying to find a guy you think fits that without any data to follow it up. And so anyway, I don't think it's an accident that's happening now, and I do really enjoy that the club is open to this approach and letting Matt kind of, he's proven his concept, I think, in everyone's mind.
He can do what he likes.
yeah, exactly. At this point, that's the data we have is, man, let's see whatever his idea is probably a good one.
I'm fairly certain if he came out and said, what I need you all to do is to start hopping on the terraces and tap your head, everyone's going to go, okay, fair enough.
No, I really, one thing that really impresses me is how there's almost never a run of bad results. And I'll knock on wood when I say that, but I don't feel like I actually need to. It seems like their ability to adapt and
I think the worst run of results in the last couple of years was fairly recently. So it was the Newport, Bradford, and Bristol City. I've done that completely out of order. So it was Bristol in the cup, I think. Where are we? Yeah, so Bristol Rovers in the cup, Newport in the league, Bradford in the league, and if we want to go back one more, it was technically a draw but win on penalties against Stevenage, and so I think that's two losses and a win, 2 losses and a draw, sorry, and one of them was a cup match. So it's and that's the worst in 2 and a bit years. It's absolutely insane.
Well, and even when you think about the stretch run for the National League Championship last year, we had that long run of draws. Yeah. And I just felt like the team stayed together really well when they could have been frustrated, and they really, they could have let it get away from them. But I feel like the leadership both on the field and then in the clubhouse was really solid, and they stayed the course and let it play out and put themselves in a position to win. I think we all would have breathed a little easier if we had a couple of 3-point victories in there, but it just was really impressive to me to take everybody. I think if you're on Twitter, and especially again, I'm not in the pub talking about this with anybody. I'm kind of I do have a small contingent of Sutton fans in Beeville now. So, for example, if the game had gone today, I'd have about 5 or 6 guys at the distillery watching. So we've come up with our own little local supporters club, but certainly not the same as you guys have. So I go from Twitter and Instagram and the things I see, and I think everybody expected Sutton to fade as the when that draw run happened, and we were the pack was coming to us pretty quickly, and it just seemed like no one ever had the nerves on the field. They just took care of business, and I think that's a leadership thing for sure.
Yeah, there was one game, I can't remember which one he said, but there was one game that we played, and it might have been the Notts County one where we gave away the penalty in the last minute, where Matt said it was a really flat changing room, and he said the way that the COVID restrictions had changed the pitch meant he had to walk a longer way around. And he said that extra 90 seconds just gave him a little bit of thinking time. and he managed to switch it around. And Jason jumped in and went, "Yeah, he's doing himself a real disservice there." He said all the heads were down, and when Matt came in, everyone was like, "Yeah, you know what? It is one game. Just that's all it is. It's one game. Let's move on. We'll do the next one." But yeah, it seems to be a perfect storm with the board open to change. I mean, Bruce got as cross as Bruce gets when I sort of mentioned that there was a feeling when Matt was appointed that he was a safe choice because he was promoted from within the club, and Bruce kind of told me and said, well, he wasn't a safe choice because he hadn't managed anywhere before. There was lots of other alternatives. It was so I was firmly told off by Bruce. But yeah, Matt he's been absolute revelation. There was a bit of a hairy time. I'm not sure when you first started following, but there was a bit of a hairy time when he first joined us.
So I did not. So I think that was the COVID shortened season when it was a little tougher.
Yeah.
I came in officially about 16 months ago.
Oh, okay.
So I got in right at the beginning.
Right on the good times.
I mean, you could not write it better. There's no doubt about that. I have been here for glory only, and I'm not that sad about it. I don't have the bona fides that a lot of the fans do, but I've definitely been here for the good times. It's pretty crazy, and I have spent more time trying to explain how the English football pyramid works to my friends than I ever thought I would.
I used to have that many years ago, and it used to have to be when I was at school. And Sutton, who, what, where? Right. So you've got this division, then this division, then this division, and keep going, and then we split into 3, and that's where we are. And it's like, my god.
That's where I probably. When I say I'm a dilettante in the world of European football, promotion and relegation I didn't really appreciate it until I started watching the Premier League 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. I mean, I probably had heard the term and had a basic understanding for it, but there is no American equivalent.
Yeah.
Some of the soccer leagues here are starting to talk about it. The sub MLS leagues, as a way to differentiate themselves from the MLS, are starting to talk about promotion and relegation. But as you can imagine, the people who buy the teams don't want that.
No.
So it's just such a different a different thing, and then wonderful in what it is. And when you follow being a PSG fan from probably age 18 until I started following Sutton, they're not getting relegated. So it's not and the other club I was super aware of was Celtic. Just because I'm Catholic, and so I was aware of Celtic, and also, with the exception of that little Rangers financial fiasco they had, neither of those clubs is going to be relegated otherwise. And so, anyway, it's just one of those things where I have come to love it because it does give you, even going into the season, if we had modest expectations, staying up is such a huge positive for the situation Sutton is in, especially so we can pay for all of those improvements to gain the green.
I think that was most people's. If you pinned everyone down and said, "Come on, tell us what you're after for this season," it was stay up, hopefully get the money for the following season, and then see where we can go, because so much of it, Sutton fans. I don't interact a huge amount with loads of other fans, but Sutton fans are very strange from what I'm seeing on Twitter, where we are really know about the money side of things, like the Papa John's Cup, the Pizza Cup. A lot of fans don't like it, and I understand why. But then the Sutton fans are straight away going, £10,000 for a win? Yes, thank you. Bring it on. Yeah. Which is kind of, I know it's strange, but we're so used to being really aware of every penny of every season.
I think it's a good thing. I think it's good for the fans to have at least an understanding. Even if you're not looking at the spreadsheet, to at least have an understanding of where the club is, and like you said earlier, appreciate the fact that it's sustainable. It is not, you're not just taking a flyer on trying to be the one team that does well. Because when you take that flyer, you have, a 3 to 5 year window to get it done. And if you don't, you're going to suffer greatly. The window is just bigger. Now it's a smaller target to get through, but the window is a lot bigger if you're financially sustainable. And the club has done a really nice job with that. I also think, and this is part of where I come from. A very small part of it is soccer is growing. When you look at, and when I say that, I don't just mean in America and Europe, everywhere. It's becoming bigger and bigger and bigger all the time. There is a valuation increase in every soccer club that's financially viable. I mean, there's just a reality there that what Sutton was worth, 20 years ago, if someone came in to give a valuation, is less than it is today,
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
because of the accessibility. I can watch Sutton matches. 20 years ago, I wouldn't have. What would have been the fun of investing with a club in England? Because there'd be no availability, no anything.
You wouldn't
I
have even had
watch.
Twitter to follow it on.
Well, exactly. I mean, right. I get to interact with you guys.
Yeah.
If Twitter didn't exist, we wouldn't be here right
We
now.
wouldn't have had this conversation because it was through. I noticed you did something on Twitter that I said hello.
Yes. And so I think that there's a reality that the value of whether it's a financial or experiential value, the value is greater now than it's ever been before. And I think Sutton has done a nice job of acknowledging that without changing the character of the club. And it's just been a really accessibility to soccer is probably the biggest reason why I was not a bigger soccer fan as a kid, right? I mean, I got to watch the World Cup. I had Fox Soccer Net or whatever the channel was that would play European soccer games in the middle of the night. And I'd watch them. When it comes to soccer, rugby, and cricket, I probably know I'm a 1% knowledge person. I know more than almost everyone else who's a native-born American, and I still don't know very much. But I know enough to be interested and to really enjoy it. I could probably tell you all the rules of cricket. Probably. I'm not gonna. Don't quiz me because I don't want to.
It's all right. I won't. We won't talk about cricket.
Okay. Good.
Yeah.
But in that sense, in fact, when I signed on with Sutton, I became a non-playing member of the Sutton Cricket Club.
Okay. Just
out of support, and a couple of years ago, we all for some reason got into cricket, and I have a little, it's like the rubber ball kit or set for playing cricket that we occasionally mess around with. So I'm an outlier on that front, but I do think soccer has become a bigger deal. I know, just look at all the American families and the big companies getting involved in it, the Middle Eastern interests that are getting involved in it. People see it's growing, and Sutton is not yet $1 billion club, but as the clubs get bigger, I think the valuations, the awareness it grows, and Sutton is right in the right place at the right time to be. You look at some of these clubs. I don't want to pick on any of them, but used to be in the Premier League and are now in the National League and have stadiums that are unbelievable as compared to our very modest home. And you wonder, wow, if they had been more financially responsible when the time was right, they should be where Sutton is. They should be taking advantage of these opportunities and these things, but instead they're digging out of a hole.
Yeah. So teams like in our division, you've got Bradford, who are in the Premier League within easy memory. I think 20 years ago-ish, they were in the Premier League, and now they're playing in the same league as us. The guys who went up there were like just looking around the stadium going, this is insane. Why are we playing a league match against them? And then you've got Norwich currently in the Premier League getting a lot of stick and criticism because they've refused to spend hundreds of millions to improve their playing squad when they kind of knew they were probably going to get relegated anyway. Yep. So they've decided, you know what, we'll stick with what we've got. We're not going to spend loads of money. We'll get relegated and we'll keep going. So
and they're very good at that.
I think they may well yo-yo again a few more times, but eventually they are going to come up and be in a position to stay up.
Well, exactly. Because instead of ruining it all for one run, I think it's a savvy thing. I'm sure it's frustrating both for their opponents and for their fans, but they know what they are, and they know and at the end of the day, you only answer to yourself.
Exactly.
You're the, whoever the decision makers are have an obligation to maintain the club. And I think being realistic about where you stand is really important. It's also amazing the gap between the Championship and the Premier League. And then Championship, I was looking at a ranking of European leagues. I think the Championship is considered either the 9th or 10th best league in the world. And the gap between the Championship and the Premier League financially is so amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And you just see that with that churn there at the bottom and the top, no one can be safe.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So as you mentioned, there's no game to preview. it wouldn't have been on iFollow, but did you listen to the Mixlr for the Surrey County
No,
Senior Cup?
I followed it online. Honestly, that's just another example of a thing where I wasn't actually sure what I was looking at. When it said Senior Cup, I was like,
It's basically we're split into counties,
Mhm.
and each county would have its own little cup competition. Now, Sutton being a funny little place, is we both qualify for the London one and the Surrey one, but we've kind of gone with the Surrey one for historical reasons, and we have over the years we're joint, I think, or one behind Dulwich. So this competition a few years ago was, I think when we got into the National League, was considered not a first team match. So it kind of got downplayed a little bit. So it's for essentially, if we had reserves, it'd be reserves or the youth team, really. But every now and then it just catches your little interest. And because the Boxing Day game was called off, Matt decided he would put a few players, first team players, into it with a mix of academy. So kind of a few of us decided, yeah, we'll go along and watch it. It was freezing cold. And we played a team called Shearwater, and we managed to win 1-0. I caught the goal, the only goal of the game. I caught it on my phone. Yay!
Oh, that's convenient.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a funny little competition. We're supposed to play Kingstonian in the next round, but not really sure what kind of team we're going to put out. But yeah, so it's one of those funny little competitions that some people absolutely love it. There's a guy on the Gandemonian blog called Juki, loves the Surrey Senior Cup. It's like his favourite thing in the whole wide world. Obviously, apart from his daughter, sorry, Juki. But it's his favourite competition. But yeah, so we won that. That was our last game, and it turns out it's probably the last game of 2021 for a few of us, because the next game, Colchester, has now been called off as well. None of these cases are to do with Sutton, so our boys have been obviously very good. So the next game we're supposed to play is Exeter, although they've had their last 2-3 games called off as well. So we obviously don't know if even that's going to go ahead, which is quite frustrating. It must be for Matt, because obviously your whole build-up is to get to a game, to get to a game, to get to a game. So when you're training, you lose that little bit of an edge because you haven't got those games to play as well. But yeah, so the next one may well be Exeter, which is going to be in the new year. Other than that, we are looking at the Pizza Cup again, which is a bandwagon that I jumped on.
Well, so my son finds the Pizza Cup to just be hilarious. And my son is a big Sutton fan. I can tell you he's 6 and has just started playing soccer. In fact, I missed a lot of so when they're broadcast here, it's about 9 a.m. for a regular Saturday game. And he plays soccer on Saturday morning. So I usually get the first half in before his game would start. But I missed a lot of them this past fall. He's a big fan of the Pizza Cup. He really enjoys it. And honestly, I will say that I do like the random competitions. I can see from a man management standpoint on a squad that's not huge and where depth is a consideration, why, it's not maybe the ideal thing. But I love it. I think it's a great thing. I think the more competition, the better. And I really, the NBA is now talking about putting in a mid-season tournament in kind of in a FA Cup type setup. And I think they're starting to appreciate that there's value in all of it. And, in American sports, we do that. We have a season champion and then a regular season champion and then a tournament champion in almost everything all the time. And I love it. I just think it's fun. It kind of makes you value the season, but also prove your medal at the end. And I'm actually trying to convince the local soccer association, once you get to the U10 level, they have an end of season tournament and they play it all on the same day. And I think it's insane. And so I'm trying to convince them that they should do a cup style tournament during the season, and then have the championship of that on the day you would do the championship of the league, and then have a league champion and a cup champion. It's just no one's listening, right over their heads. Absolutely no interest in what I'm saying. but I think it's great. And once I kind of figured out what the Surrey Senior Cup is, because I am aware generally that Sutton has a bunch of community teams. So when I saw
Yep.
senior, I was like, okay, is this the senior team?
Yeah.
As I saw the lineup, I realized no, it's just
Yeah. No,
senior and not a U23 or a
yeah.
U18
There's levels. So there's junior cup, which is yeah, it's not for kids. It's different levels. So
Yeah.
level 1, 2, 3 essentially. And then they have the same for the Sunday league teams as well. They have similar things as well. So except I think they've got a few more different levels of it. But yeah, it's a funny little setup. But this pizza cup is Matt pointed out that once you get through the groups, you're only 4 games away from Wembley, and everyone was like, oh, hang on a minute. So we're kind of all like, who knows? But as I said when I did the Gandemonian blog, there was hardly anyone there for some of the games. Then we had Wimbledon, which was quite a big attendance because it was Wimbledon. And then Stevenage was a little bit lower. And I said, you start seeing when we get through these rounds, everyone's going to suddenly be like, yay, I've always loved it.
Well, that's right. It's always good to win. And I think that it's certainly worth the effort, especially for where we are. Both financially, taking a couple dollars home after every win is nothing to dismiss. And then in addition to that, some notoriety could come from it, which is always a good thing. And I just think competitive games are so important for development. I come from a not soccer background, as I said. I coached a lot of basketball and volleyball, and not to talk about my boring high school coaching career, but I coached volleyball at a high school in Oklahoma City when I was in law school. And it was a school that had no history as a volleyball club, as a team, no background, no wins, no anything. I coached there for 4 years, and the first thing I did was improve our schedule. We went from playing, easy games against scrub teams to losing against better teams. The year after that, we played better teams again. We won a few more, and we instilled kind of a seriousness and a analytics-based approach to the team and all these other things. And I left in 2012. Since 2012, so my assistant coach took over for me. They won the state championship the following year. They've been to state every year since then, and they've won 2 more state championships, including this past October. And I just am I think I'm going to call it professionalizing, but taking things seriously, playing competitive matches with the downside of potentially, the fatigue and the injuries that come with it. I love it. I think it's a positive only, and it also breaks up. This is the National League was worse. But it is a long season.
Yeah.
And to have a few different things to look at, opportunities to play your reserves, people who wouldn't otherwise get in the game, because you never know when they'll be needed.
Yeah.
I think about the shootout match you were mentioning earlier, where
Stevenage
come back in.
Yeah.
And after the reserve goalie got hurt, I mean, you got to be ready all the time, no matter who you are. There's no days off. And even if you don't win the Pizza Cup, getting guys the experience that when the injuries come down the line or when the COVID issues come down the line, they can step in, and that's going to be huge. And I think for a club in our status, it's not like we can just go out and buy anybody we want. We don't have a lot of opportunities on that front. We need to build from within and develop constantly. And so I'm pro Surrey Senior Cup.
Yeah. Perfect. Right. So I think I've kind of covered everything here. Other than any more news on when your products come into the UK?
Okay. Not
soon
enough.
Sorry.
Yes, it's been an experience. I have to rework my production area because the bottle size in the UK is not the same here. So actually, the United States has changed it recently, but you guys sell 700 milliliter standard size bottles, and we sell 750 milliliter standard size bottles. So in the past 6 months, I've purchased a filler that is compatible to both. So that's step one. I've got step one. And then I am trying diligently to understand the labeling regulations in the UK. They are very complicated and difficult here, but the UK takes it to a completely new level. And once I figure that out, I'll figure out the tax component. So what I really need is if I constantly look, but I need someone there for help. So if anyone does listen to this and knows this business better than I do, please call me. But that's a big deal. I'm optimistic. Honestly, I will be clear here. I think the better Sutton does, the easier it'll be for me. And that's it. Already is. The fact that in fact I got a guy to talk to me about this who probably wouldn't have given me the time of day shortly after the promotion happened last spring. Okay. So I do think that having that in is it's a thing I do here as well. Before I go into a market, I typically sponsor a sports team. So the Rio Grande Valley of Texas is where the border of Mexico is and where the Gulf Coast kind of meet.
Right.
And we are the official vodka of the Rio Grande Valley Toros, which are the USL Championship club there.
Okay.
And then we are the official vodka of the Houston SaberCats, who play Major League Rugby. And that's brand new. Like that's going to start in 2 months, and it's going to get me into a bunch of places in Houston. We do some other things here and there, but I'm a big fan of using sports as a way to, because people love it. I mean, they love it. And there's a gravitas to it that people really take seriously. And if you affiliate yourselves with good things and good experiences, it's only a positive. So the Sutton thing has obviously not been intentional. I think I have 2 banners up on the sideboards by one of the goals, but that was just because I thought it was cool. I don't know that I'm getting a lot of commercial exposure because of that. And then for now, they cycle my distillery logo through. If you're watching on the iFollow, I get a little ad in the corner when they do the ad. So mostly just novelty for me. It's really exciting to see it. It's fun. But
I was gonna say some of our supporters are definite experts, but it's more in the consumption of products, not in getting it on the shelves, taking it off the shelves.
Yes,
clearing the shelves.
I think the gin would be a big hit if I can make it happen.
There was one occasion a good few years ago. We went to Jersey, I think it was Jersey or Guernsey, I can't remember. And the hotel that they were all staying in had to then send people off to other places on the island to get more booze. And they were like, "We've drunk the island dry. There's no more booze on the island." So,
sounds like my kind of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like it a lot.
Well, hopefully you will get a chance at some point to come over to Rainy UK with your wife, so she can say, no, I do prefer Texas. Thank you very much.
Well, I had a trip planned for the 12th of February for the Forest Green match, but I've called it off because I was going with a bunch of my friends. We were going to come in, do the weekend, and then head home Monday morning. But with all the uncertainty about testing and quarantine and all that, it's just not going to work. So I'm going to try again for spring break probably, which will be mid-March, and see if we can make that happen.
Or Wembley.
Hey, I'll honestly, if for some reason we don't achieve automatic promotion and we're in the playoffs, I'm coming for that too.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
I'll make it work in any way I can, and once my kids aren't in school, it'll be much easier. Whether that be spring break or the end of the school year, I can travel more freely.
Excellent. Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, Kenneth.
Enjoy it, Mike. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Hope to speak to you again soon. Once again, if anyone wants to join in the chat, just give us a message on any of the socials at Sutton Podcast. Again, I haven't really done a lot on TikTok because I'm not sure what it's all about. And I've just put a shout out to anyone. If you want to be my guest, please just drop me a message. As we mentioned, new voices are always useful, but positives if you can. We're not Arsenal Fan TV. Take care, everyone. Have a great new year. Although I should be getting another podcast in just before the new year with Catherine, all things being equal. And hopefully we'll see everyone at Exeter. So take care, guys. Thank you. United!